everyone. Welcome to another episode of Pathways and Paychecks. I've brought an old friend here with me today, and he is a management consultant at the Big Four. He's going to tell us how he had a tough time deciding what career he wanted to choose and how he tried a couple different things until he narrowed it down and is where he is today. So, welcome to the show, Harshal. How are you?
Hey there, Arshdeep. Thanks for having me. I'm doing great. How are you?
Pretty good.
Way to
So,
call
we
me
just,
old right away. Old friend, huh?
you're not old, but our friendship is going towards being old at this
Decades.
point.
Yes. Yes. No,
Yeah.
I'm glad to be here.
So, we caught up a little bit about your travels before we hit play. Do you want
Yeah.
to tell us what a luxurious life you live?
I think it's like luxurious on the outside and hectic on the inside, but for the most part, I'm very grateful for my life. You're right. Yeah, I've gotten to kind of, because I can take my laptop and kind of go anywhere and work from an airport, work from a lounge, work from a plane. I enjoyed to, invite my friends on a trip. They always get like it added to a random group chat, like, oh, let's go to, Mount Rainier 2024, like random group chats.
Oh,
And
heck yeah.
I make sure to kind of live my year to the fullest and see as much as I possibly can. So it is luxurious, but sometimes it'll be hilarious to get a Zoom call and you're just like in a cafe in the middle of nowhere with
Yeah,
barely any connection. So a lot of interesting ups and downs.
I can imagine. So, tell us a little bit about your role and how you got here.
Yeah, I'm a management consultant at a Big Four firm, and I was recruited out of college. I studied economics, and within that, I studied a lot of statistics, a lot of kind of how businesses make their decisions, and understanding how money and human psychology comes into play when we're deciding to make new products for the market or when we're trying to make improvements for a certain software project. And so I did not know whether I wanted to go into uh, the industry or consulting. In my world,
Okay.
they have that kind of separate line, where industry is like the Microsofts, the actual tech companies, or like Google's, Cisco's that make like exact products or sell an exact service, whereas Big Four firms, they provide what they call professional services, and they have many people that are a jack of all trades, or they have many people that are specialists, and they kind of tool them out to places. So I was in between fourth,
Okay.
that decision, and then like when someone wants you, you're like, okay, that's kind of cool, and Deloitte really enjoyed. I think my communication skills. They enjoyed my writing skills. They enjoyed how coachable and teachable I am, and
Okay.
but it's it's something that I really appreciated. They advertise it as you're a consultant. You get to work in 10 to 15 different industries. You get to work with like 4 to 5 different clients, and you get a lot of experience. So that's
Yeah.
what I wanted. When I was indecisive, I was like, let me throw myself in this pinball of life and see what options consulting gives me. And so it's like, actually, I'm still kind of deciding, but consulting allows me to get paid while getting
Yeah, that's
experience with
fair.
different firms. And this firm teaches me a lot of different skill sets every like 6 months. I have to learn a new skill essentially.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Okay, just backing up, can you
Yeah.
tell us how you try to narrow down into just working for a consultancy company or like just economics in general, how you picked your major? Because I know you were trying to decide for a while too. What made you pick this finally?
That's a good question. I focused on what I think I'm good at, sure, but what I think I have an unfair advantage in. And not like extremely better than anyone, but like I think I have my own personal advantage in people skills and under
Yeah.
my own kind of advantage in how to get to know a person quickly and understand what they're experiencing. And I think that's something that was a common theme in my friendships, my relationships.
Yeah.
And I realized that, okay, I need to do something that caters that feeds that energy. And
I like that.
I didn't want to become a therapist or anything, But consultancy is basically like a business therapist. You're just walking other professional folks and be like, it's gonna be okay. Like we got you. We'll take care of you. And to the rest of the world, it sounds like a fake job, and sometimes it can feel like that. But there are many rewarding moments where they couldn't have a product go to market without some skill
Yeah.
that we offered them, or some kind of advice or insight that we offered them. Because yeah, as and as someone in the industry, they have to do many things for their company. They have to be like making the product, talking to marketing, talking to design. Whereas they can give me one job, and my entire job for that week is just what they want me to do, that task. And that
Fair.
frees up their bandwidth. And that gives them
Yeah.
insights that they didn't have before. So it comes down to me wanting to be around people, and me finding out what my kind of advantages in life, what
Okay.
natural skills I have.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So it sounds like you basically get put on different projects every few months and they train you ahead of time before you get put on the next thing, right?
Yeah, and a lot of times they work with your existing skills. They'll invest like, a few months training you, and then they'll be like, all right, for this year, we want you to be only focusing on helping clients with this tool, or
Okay.
helping clients with this skill set. So that's
Gotcha.
kind of, I like that. I like to learn new things, and my constant skill is always people management. So that's been helpful.
Yeah. Awesome. I know after college you had a couple internships. Do you think that helped? I'll get you to describe them and talk about your role, but then also if you think they helped you land your current job.
They did. They made me a sharper interviewer. One thing. I think you've heard that interviewing is its own different job, and then the job is a different job, as many would
Yeah.
know. So those jobs taught me how to simple things like manage deadlines, but also how to talk to executives, like how kind of fast paced they want things, how high demand they must be. So those internships kind of taught me how to deal with high pressure situations. They taught me how to, of course, like technical skills, like
Right.
certain dashboard management, getting really good with Excel. Those technical skills definitely came in. But honestly, at the end of the day, they gave me a lot of confidence in dealing with folks and managing teams. So for sure, they prepared me immensely.
Okay. So what were the titles at those internships?
The title for the first internship, I was essentially a change management analyst.
Okay.
And so both of the titles are analysts catered. So
Okay.
the first one is change management, and the second title was business analyst.
Okay.
For the first one, I managed a dashboard that kind of took in all the changes that this company is experiencing. They were, whether if it's they're transforming the entire way they do things, like and like when I say the way they do things, let's say when they're making a product, from start to finish, there's a certain process, and the way they do it, it's so rigorous that everything is documented. All these processes are like formalized and rigid. So when they do any change to it, they need folks that are good at change management. So that
Okay.
was my kind of internship. I managed all the requests that were coming in. I would catalog all the feedback that employees were giving, and
Okay.
then we would, extrapolate data from that and be like, all right, this is what the employees want. This is what the people want. This is what we should do.
Okay.
And the second role, I was a business analyst where I kind of created a lot of reports within Excel. It was more data crunching, and yeah, mainly just creating reports and documentation for, so if there were certain forms they needed, or if there were certain sales they needed to do. It was very like behind the scenes grunt work.
Okay. Pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of these terms like change management, but I know you mentioned like the term CRM. I don't even know what that means.
CRM is customer relationship management.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So
Okay, pretty cool.
yeah, it's just I feel like a lot of times business, like, they just create a lot of heavy terminology, or quote unquote fancy words to describe something, and
Yeah,
it does have a massive utility.
right.
But they also love it when you can just speak direct. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Just tell me directly.
Yeah. Okay, pretty cool. What was your interview with Deloitte like? Because you said the recruiters were on your campus and then you basically just talked to them and got the process going.
Yeah, so first I applied everywhere right as my senior year was starting, and I went to a lot of workshops. A lot of these firms at our campus at UNC Charlotte, they would have Deloitte, EY, which is another big four firm, KPMG. and PwC, which is the final fourth. So they would literally come into UNC Charlotte and host these workshops, and they would teach us how to be a consultant, or they would be like, hey, this is a workshop on problem solving. This is a workshop on business management. And so they would
Okay.
host these workshops, A, with the hopes of like getting people interested in these fields, and then B, to see if there's any candidates that they like that
Oh, yeah,
come
that's
stand out
good.
a lot. So they do a lot of heavy recruiting at the university. So
Makes
sometimes,
sense.
of course, any college student, you go anywhere where there's free food and free pizza. So I think at one point I remember being done with class. I didn't sign up for a workshop, but I saw a guy in a suit holding 10 pizza boxes and walking into the business center at our college, and I just followed him in, and I sat down and did a workshop at a consulting
That's
firm.
great.
And luckily I was already thinking about it, but that was my first
Yeah.
workshop, and then I got interested in even more, and I chased it even more. But I just followed pizza.
That's
Like,
awesome.
yeah.
I mean, it's honestly important because a lot of times, even when we're in college, we there are a lot of resources available, but we're doing classes, we're doing other extracurricular stuff, we're doing so many things while trying to decide what we want to do in the future. So
Right.
sometimes it's hard to spot these opportunities, even though it's something that could benefit you in the future.
For
So it sounds
sure.
like this opportunity came to you at the right time and it just helped mold your decision towards that. So that's pretty
It
cool.
it really did. I really wanted to have a bias towards action, you know, and making sure I'm doing something to learn about something. And so, and then they would also like email, like when you sign put your email in like an interest list, and then they'll email you like, hey, we're doing, just come by. We're having a little fair. We'll have a little table in the courtyard or in the union, as you would call it, and
Yeah.
just talk to us. And so I would add them on LinkedIn, and then there would be formalized like online sessions that they would have where they would have like 10 students, 10, 15 students that they really liked, and they invite them via email. And from
Okay.
that, they encourage you to kind of apply formally, and then you get assigned a HR person, and the HR person has like 5, 6 students that she's helping.
Okay.
And so, yeah, they
Gotcha.
filter through. They From pizza to actual job offer, they filter through really well.
That's fair. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's just to attract people in general, but then obviously they start the filtering process to pick out the
Right.
best slash also pick out people who are really interested and gonna be invested. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't
that
know
makes
if I
sense.
can do this, but did pharmacy have something similar, or were there a lot of career fairs at your
That's a very
college?
good question. So I'm trying to go back into my time.
Yeah.
when when I was thinking of just careers in general, if you heard the first episode, you'll probably listen to the fact that I didn't really narrow down anything until I took a year off, because until the end, I just kept going back and forth, and I was thinking medicine, I was
Right.
thinking dentistry, I was thinking PA school, I was also thinking pharmacy school, but it was until my year off that I decided and narrowed it down.
Mm.
But I did actually go to one career fair sort of a thing at UNC, the Pharmacy School of Eshelman,
Mm.
and I had just talked to a few people. But yeah, I didn't do too many of these things
Right.
either. I
Right.
didn't go to too many events,
Interest
or I didn't.
meetings. Yeah.
No, I didn't. And that's a
That
very good
makes
point. I think people who are starting fresh, I know it's overwhelming trying to navigate everything when you're in college, but I think it's still good to keep an ear out, or to keep your eyes out and just see what pamphlets are hanging out,
Yeah.
Sometimes something might catch your eye, even if it's just for a free pizza, just go check it out.
It's so important. You made a really good point. I think you have to have an open mind to it. That's the only way you can invite opportunities.
Yeah.
I think in healthcare, it's so much more formalized, and there's so many degrees and things that you definitely need. So it's like
Yeah.
more structured and kind of laid out in front of you, and then kind of the rat race begins. So I think
Yeah.
that,
I agree.
there's a difference in that.
Cool. So now that you're working at the company,
Yeah.
we'll dig a little bit deep into that. So tell us how the roles work, if there's a hierarchy, like what would your next goal be or position be?
Yeah. So primarily in consulting, so they have two or three facets to Deloitte, where there's core consulting, there's tax, because Deloitte started as an accounting firm first and foremost, And then there is kind of audit and kind of government related contracts. Generally, what the theme is, you start as an analyst and you're doing kind of all the grunt work and whatever technical proficiencies you have or that you want to be trained in. Then the next path is consultant. And in that, you're leading teams. You're leading your own little analyst, and you're also doing similar analyst work.
Okay.
And then above that, there's three-ish roles. So senior consultant, and you're essentially like a pseudo manager, doing everything they can do, but you're also managing work streams, and now you have multiple clients.
Okay.
Normally, analysts don't get more than one. And then after senior consultant, you're formally known as a manager.
Okay.
And in manager, you get into the territory of sales, where you're actually, it's up to you to kind of find some clients. And, that's part of their role, that the primary role. And they also lead multiple clients, they lead multiple groups of consultants and senior consultants and analysts. And they're primarily client facing. Senior manager is primarily into sales. Like at least in my experience, the folks that I've talked to, half of their job is to find other clients in industry, bring them in, and then the other half is at managing the technical requirements of their own projects. So they work immense amount. Like they're doing
Gotcha.
two jobs essentially.
Wow.
And then after that is a title called PPMD, which stands for four different things, or three different things: partner, principal, and managing director. All
Okay.
three of them are heavily into building relationships, getting clients. They will have many millions of dollars of worth of clients in their belt, and
Okay.
they show up to heavily like a stand-up meeting maybe like once a month because they're just that busy, and they decide they're the final say on, okay, we'll have 100 people on this client, we'll commit them this much money of services, we're going to expect this much. They are the buck stops with them. And the differences in those roles is it's kind of like principals and partners, they have different amounts of equity in the firm. So now they're like, it's like buying a share into the firm.
True.
Like you get a certain revenue share of the clients you bring in. You get a revenue share of what the firm makes. If the firm makes X amount of money a year, you get a share in that. So now they have equity
Okay.
and ownership into the firm. So that's where they are.
Yeah.
So yeah, analyst to partner. And my goal, I
Okay.
just got promoted to being a consultant.
Nice.
So I don't know if I want to go all the way down because it takes about 10 to 12 years to do all
Okay,
that.
got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then when you were talking about just sales in general, like, if that's a big part or portion of your job, I feel like it's very challenging. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, luckily it's not part yet. The way
Yeah.
it can be though is you help those partners. So the
Okay.
senior managers and partners, they're the ones finding new clients and heavily in the sales process of recruiting. They call RFPs, which means request for a proposal. And so they'll propose, 100-page PowerPoint, but guess who's making them? Us, the consultants and
Yeah.
analysts. And so it's very actually fun. It's long hours, and you get to sit in a conference room with your consultants, drinking coffee, ordering takeout, and you just crack out like, does this look right? Does this word look right? Does it sound
Yeah.
right? And I love that problem solving of like,
Yeah.
will this appeal to someone? So it's almost like marketing. Like, will this catch their eye, and can we convince them to hire us? So
Yeah.
it's
That's very
challenging
cool.
but fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I know some of, like, just in general, what do you think some of the hardships are with this job? I know you kind of mentioned sometimes long hours, and I know you do a lot of traveling. So for some
Yeah.
people, it could be a major perk, but I'm sure sometimes it could be a hardship too.
They that It can be a hardship. I think folks that don't have too many roots, as in maybe not they don't have kids or they don't have a partner,
Yeah.
where they're locally tied or family they have to take care of, it's easier for them. And yeah, the hard part is there are weeks where it's like 60-hour weeks, and sometimes you'll have to be kind of on call for your senior manager, or maybe your
Okay.
client is in Europe or Japan or wherever, and
True.
they'll call you, and you'll have to kind of disrupt your life, your day to day. And yes, maybe someone from the outside may look at it, well, okay, so what? You get to work from wherever you want, and
Yeah.
your airline miles are great. You're probably racking up a lot of perks. But the trade off is sometimes your peace of mind at certain hours. Because with a client, if you want to retain them, sometimes you have to be on call. sometimes.
Yeah,
So
makes
that's a
sense.
hard part for sure. And a lot of times, if you get a client where 1 month then you find out you don't, and you're not compatible, maybe you don't like them as much, or you're not compatible
I
working with
see.
them, you're kind of stuck for a little while. And
True.
you don't, that flexibility goes away. And I think the last point I'd make is there were weeks where I'd feel like I was living out of a suitcase, which in the first half of it felt super fun. Because, like, you're eating at these fun restaurants, you're at comfortable hotels, but sometimes I just want my mom's food. Like, sometimes I just want
Yeah.
to be with my friends or not have to put on a show. And, you know,
Yeah, I know.
not that we feel fake, but there's like, I'm sure you would say the similar, but
Oh
like in a
yeah.
professional world, there's a certain element of a facade, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
can be draining.
Yeah, yeah. Emotionally, for sure. Emotionally draining along with physical
Yeah,
draining. I
yeah.
agree.
But above
Pretty
all,
interesting.
it's a blessing. But it's interesting how I think it takes time. In the beginning, you don't feel any of it.
Yeah. I was just curious. So you talked about like your life at or what someone can expect at the Big Four, but do you think like smaller consultancies are similar?
So from my limited experience, smaller consulting, I know some they call them boutique consultancies, smaller consultancies. I think they're similar in the content of work. Sometimes they might be even more specialized. So I feel like they get more of a challenge because a lot of our projects are have 50 to 100 people, and smaller firms, it's only maybe it might just be like 3 to 10 people or 10 to 20 people, and so that's you get more experience quicker. You get to you're forefront of any like business hardships or any like, okay, my software's down, what do I do? Troubleshoot this. Whereas for big four firms, if we're in a team of 100, there's so many people that are just watching each other's backs. So you may not
Yeah.
feel that you're constantly growing. So similar
Yeah.
experience, and I'd say even more challenging. It's kind of like going from a big, FANG company to a startup.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
yeah.
Pretty cool. I know you talked about some of the perks already. Is there anything else you can think of that we haven't talked about, like perk wise or other?
Yeah, so they know a lot of similar perks to industry. Like we get a lot of yearly bonuses of just like bonuses that are dedicated to just well-being. Like we get an X amount of money to just like, hey, this is for you. But they want proof that it was used for something like an activity or like a gym membership or like an object. And
Fair.
there's like certain
Okay.
categories. And then it's great to have a lot of mental health resources. I use them a lot.
Yeah.
They provide you, they call it integrated mental health services. So there's a portal. It's anonymous. They'll hook you up with a
That's nice.
psychologist, and I think 7 1 hour sessions are covered, which is a good amount.
Yeah.
And I love seeing new cities. I was in Salt Lake City, Utah last year, and I was just pitter pattering on my laptop, but in front of me was a giant mountain, and I was like, "This is so
Ooh.
scenic and
Yeah.
beautiful." So
That's
I think
awesome.
very very standard perks. What were your assumptions of consulting when you first heard that title throughout your journey? Like what were your first thoughts like when someone's like,
That's a
"I'm a
great
consultant"?
question.
Yeah,
So, based on what I know so far, I know I've had some friends and friends of friends who are in consultancy. I had heard that you are basically like a liaison between your company and your company's client, kind of thing. You're like the middleman. And you're basically just helping them with whatever they need. And obviously,
right.
you do have to do some traveling. I know when people talk about consultants, you know they're traveling a lot.
Yeah,
So I think just based on that, I know a lot of people make assumptions, good and bad.
sure.
And I do know, I feel like you mentioned, people who are just starting or people, although I do know someone or some people at least who have been with the same company for years and years now and they still travel. Their family's used to it now. I'm
Right.
sure it was a little tricky when their kids were younger or when they had to make adjustments, but now obviously they've stuck through and it is rewarding because some people make it all the way to partner when with so much
Mm-hmm.
hard work and when they
Yeah.
stay for so long. So yeah. I do have a couple of other questions I was going to ask you
Yeah.
while you were talking earlier. So you already talked about bonuses. Are you able to talk a little bit about like salary ranges and what someone can expect when they're starting versus when they've stuck out and are like
Mm-hmm.
climbing the ladder?
For sure. criteria for salary in the beginning is where you're kind of located. They identify it
Mm-hmm.
as high cost of living cities or low cost of living
Mm.
cities. And so for like the New Yorks and Chicago's and San Francisco's, an analyst typically can expect to start off with 90 to
Okay.
like 85 to 95 range.
That's
And
good.
honestly, even in Charlotte, I know some people that
Mm-hmm.
started off as an analyst at 90. And
Mm-hmm.
that is very fortunate coming straight out
Yeah.
of college.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
the other criteria is your skill set. So let's
Mm-hmm.
say if you aren't super specialized,
Mm-hmm.
then you'll be put into kind of this bucket of analysts that are more generalist. And
Mm-hmm.
they know that they'll have to invest some training in them, but
Mm-hmm.
they also recognize that, hey, they're very teachable and they have other
Yeah.
skills that aren't technical. So
Mm-hmm.
those I think start off, well, I know that they start off with 75. Uh,
Okay.
and so that's kind of the lowest bar for an
Yeah. That's
analyst
still pretty
is
good. Yeah.
75. And then
Mm-hmm.
the specialists start off at like 90, 95.
Mm-hmm.
And then, or were you curious about like how it grows or just a starting point for now?
Yeah, just in general, even like if you've stuck out like some of the other positions that you mentioned as you grow in the hierarchy, like up to what range can someone expect that after a few years and changing roles?
Yeah, for sure. It's standard up until I think senior manager to partner, because after
Mm-hmm.
that it's tied into kind of sales revenue.
Fair.
So standard wise, like consultancy, you from that 75 to 85 range,
Mm-hmm.
you would go up to around 95 to
Mm-hmm.
101.
Okay.
And then senior consultants, their minimum bar, some unfortunately I've heard that they were like, wow, you're at 90. I'm at 90. I'm a senior consultant.
Mm.
And
Okay.
so they haven't said that to me, but I've heard that say that. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting how sometimes your salary jumps so much just based on
Mm-hmm.
like the market or the inflation
Yeah.
or just
Absolutely.
they want more people. So
Mm-hmm.
they are at the low bar 90, the high bar like 115,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
115 to 120, and then managers at a minimum I think are at 120 to about 180.
Awesome.
And then after senior manager,
Mm-hmm.
I've spoken to some where like in 1 year they can see revenue of 1 million, and that commission on that is
Wow.
immense. So then it's like high six figures. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, that was very helpful. Okay, I have one more question. So you talked about how you started, right after college, and you already had, done some taken classes and done internships to help with, like, around the
yeah.
topic. But if someone were to transition into this career after working in another field for a few years, what route would they have to take, you think?
So it's interesting. I know of a manager at the firm who has an MD, and they were
Okay.
a doctor for many years,
Wow.
and now they wanted to go into health strategy. And
Okay.
because we have a lot of big industry in healthcare, we call it life sciences and healthcare, and they
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be a leader in shaping health policy and shaping other hospital systems because we have those
Mm-hmm.
clients as well. So the steps to kind of transition are
Mm-hmm.
not much at all. I think like it depends on what you want to do. So if you want to go into kind of policy, if you already
Mm-hmm.
have industry, if you're already a subject matter expert in that,
Mm-hmm.
then a lot of times there's not much barrier of entry because
True.
Deloitte or other big firms, they crave subject matter experts. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
we are expert at selling everyone's skills. Like we are so good at
Mm-hmm.
that. So
Yeah.
the barrier to entry to specialists are very low. Yet they would definitely recommend like maybe a business cert because one
Okay.
certification that a lot of times, and these classes are maybe range from $200 to $700 courses,
Mm-hmm.
just
Yeah.
finishing over the weekend. But they'll teach you kind of like the fundamentals of project management, which is
Mm-hmm.
like a core skill that almost everyone at
True.
a big four firm has. So
Okay.
it's a recommended prerequisite
Mm-hmm.
or like a criteria that helps. But other than that, I think just the bare minimum fundamentals like a degree,
Okay.
4 year degree, because yeah,
That's fair.
for sure.
That's very
No,
helpful.
nothing like pharmacy or medicine. I'm sure we have to take like
Yeah, I guess we have to
biology.
go and do a four. Yeah, you're right. We have to have certain prereqs to get into school,
Yeah,
and then you'd have to do the 4 years as well.
yeah,
But again, even in those fields, I've had a few friends or coworkers who've done that. They've had, different jobs, nothing close to it. and
Yeah.
they had gone back. So obviously that is much harder, but this would be much easier if you are truly interested, passionate, and okay with things like traveling. I think it could turn out to be a really meaningful career for a lot of people.
100%. And funny enough, like during my interview, I talked maybe 10% about my internships, which are more technically related. And I talked more
Yeah.
about my non-technical jobs. I talked about my serving.
Yeah.
Like I was a server at restaurants for a couple of years. I did Uber driving. I worked at
Yeah.
retail stores. I spoke more about that because they were interested in that. Like
Yeah, that's
they were like,
fair.
tell me what makes you different and what intangible skills did you learn that can't be put on paper.
I love that.
They prefer those because that excels in building relationships, and consulting
Yeah.
is a business of relationships. So
So yeah, based on what we've talked so far, I think it perfectly aligns with who you are. I definitely agree with that. And anyone who is a people person or who is not really sure, like because I was like that too at one point. I was like, I want to do something business type career,
right,
but obviously I chose pharmacy and I'm happy with it. But
yeah,
I think I could have equally done something like this, like what you have, and I think been happy and successful at it too.
yeah. I think so too. I think the primary thing, even if you're not an extrovert or ambivert or introvert or people person or not, they like folks that enjoy problem solving. They like folks that keep an open mind towards different industries. So I work with a lot of folks that are very introverted, but one of their goals was like, I want to become a better people person, or I want to actually just work in big teams and do data crunching behind the scenes and just
Yeah.
be here and problem solve. Because I think anyone that kind of dislikes monotony and wants new problems every 2-3 months and new things to
Yeah.
solve,
That's true.
consultancy is perfect for that. It's just you're fixing a new puzzle every 3 months, and it's so fun.
Yeah, you're not stuck with the same people, you're not stuck with the same client.
Nope,
So it can be a
nope.
good thing.
Different cities, different people every few
Yeah.
months, and
Awesome.
it's amazing to see how people change in that journey.
This was super great. I'm glad we talked about everything we did, honestly. I
Yeah,
got to learn so much more about you and we got to
for sure.
reconnect again because it's so hard to get hold of you sometimes.
I know. It's great to see like your life and your family through social media. I'm cheering you guys on
Oh, thank you.
through my laptop screens.
Sounds good. Well, tell everyone you know to subscribe and share because
Yes,
that,
this was
that
so
really
fun.
helps us spread the word. Yeah.
I know I learned a lot about when Akshit was on. I learned a lot about Fang and like software engineering and kind of
Yeah.
his perspective. So it's important to have these various perspectives,
Yeah,
pathways and
absolutely.
perspectives.
Sounds good. All right, we'll catch up soon. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.